Hi, this is Peter from The Movable Chef. Today I'm going to make some fried chicken, which is another southern favorite where there are a ton of different varieties, ranging from a really simple, just toss it in flour, fry it, very light breading, all the way up to a batter-based frying technique where you have large amounts of crust around it, double dipped, double fried, a lot of different ways to fry chicken. What I'm going to present today is the one I found to be the best compromise between being kind of fussy about it and getting the best results. And that's going to be something which is a double dipped preparation and is a brined chicken. So you need to start early. You need to plan ahead if you want to make fried chicken this way, because you need to brine that chicken in a sugar water mixture with some spices to really get both flavor and moisture into the bird. Now, a lot of people don't do this. That's fine. Fried chicken can be as simple or as complex as you want. I find that fried chicken being a southern food, growing up in the South, we didn't make fried chicken at home a lot because there are so many great resources for fried chicken out in town. It's something we went out for. And having moved around a bit, I found that that's not true everywhere. If you want good fried chicken, you probably need to learn how to make it. So we're going to do that, and the one advantage that you have as a home cook over a fried chicken chain is the time and the effort you put into the preparation and the quality of the ingredients you buy. Because the advantage they have is mass, and not just mass of chicken or mass of customers, it's actually mass of oil in that deep fryer. And that's a thermostatically controlled deep fryer which regulates the temperature very well. But even if you have a deep fryer at home, it's not going to hold 5 or 10 or 15 gallons of oil. And that's what really provides that great temperature stability. What you see at home fried chicken cooking is much more of a skillet fried, which is kind of a different technique and a very different way of frying chicken. That's what we're going to do with a double dipped buttermilk based coating. And the first thing to do is to take that smaller chicken you've managed to find, that 3-pound, 2 3/4 pound chicken, and cut it up into 8 pieces. Now, if you found a chicken which is a little bit bigger than that, say 3 1/4 pound, 3 1/2, you can obviously still use it, but you're going to do a 10-piece cut on that. So let me show you how to prepare a chicken for frying by cutting it into 8 pieces, and then we'll brine it. So this is what a fryer should look like. This chicken weighed 2.8 pounds with a little bit of moisture there, so about 2 3/4 pound chicken. And notice its size. It's not a huge bird. It's not the kind of roaster that you usually see in the stores now. So to do the 8-piece cut on this, the first thing we're going to do is actually flip it over. And I highly recommend a pair of kitchen shears for this job. We're going to just cut down the backbone just with kitchen shears. And cut straight through the bone, straight up through the neck. This is one of the great advantages of buying chickens and butchering them yourself like this, is that you get the backbones, and these are great for making stock. So what I'll do with this backbone is I'll throw it in the freezer until it's frozen, and then add it to the bag of chicken backs I have in there. And when I get enough, say 5 or 6, I'll make a big pot of chicken stock, and I'll use that for cooking. I'll use it for soup. It's a fantastic homemade stock, and it's really something that you get just out of the, if you will, the waste of chickens you bought for some other purpose. So you've cut the back out of the chicken, and now you just need to find where the joint is on the wing, and you want your knife to run straight through that joint. So there's the chicken wing. I'll usually take off the very wing tip because there's nothing edible there and it gets kind of burnt when frying. So there's one wing, that's one piece. The second wing will be another piece. Go ahead and take the tip off again. So there's 2 of our 8 pieces. Flip it back over. Now we've got the back of the bird. You can just cut alongside the breast, and the leg quarter should come right out. If there's any extra fat or skin that you see, go ahead and trim that off. Now we just need to separate the thigh from the leg, and you just want to find the joint, which should be right in there, and then run your knife right through the middle of that joint. If you need to break it a little bit, that's fine too, or approach from the back. But that's all we're trying to do, is separate the thigh, the leg. That's 2 more pieces, so that's 4. We're going to do the same on the other side. That's 6 pieces. And then finally, we just split the breast in 2 for a small chicken like this, and that's an 8-piece cut. Now, if we were going to use a larger chicken, you don't want to leave these breasts whole. You would come across them one more time about there, and that would be a 10-piece cut. And that's what you do for something which is a bit heavier than the 3 pounds we're looking for here. So we have our chicken cut into 8 pieces, and now we're going to brine it. The brine I've prepared is really simple. It is just short of a gallon of water. I used about 3 quarts of water, a cup of kosher salt. To that I've added about a lemon and a half cut into chunks, a couple bay leaves. I have added a few dozen peppercorns, just a small handful of peppercorns, and then some rosemary and some thyme, and about a teaspoon and a half to 2 teaspoons of dried rosemary and dried thyme. You could certainly use fresh herbs, but I figure if I'm going to be soaking something in water for 8 to 10 hours, then I can just go ahead and use the dried herbs, and they'll have a chance to impart their flavor given that length of time. And then about 2 or 3 tablespoons of sugar. Not so much to sweeten it, but just to help the chicken draw that mixture, that brine, into the actual meat of the chicken. So what we're going to do is we're going to transfer the chicken to a 1 gallon bag, a zipper bag, just a 1 gallon Ziploc. And we've taken that brine, we've boiled it, added our herbs and the lemon and the salt and the sugar, dissolved all of that, and then let this thoroughly cool. We don't want to poach the chicken first. We want to let this cool down all the way, and then we're going to add that right into the Ziploc. The ladle helps out just to transfer it at first before you start pouring. Let the air come out of this, zipper it closed. Make sure you have it in a bowl, just in case your bag leaks or the zipper burst. Throw it in the fridge, and you could do this in the morning and fry the chicken that night. 8 to 10 hours is probably good. You don't want to go for much more than 12 hours because it can get too salty. And you probably want more than a couple hours because it won't have enough time to take those flavors in. So I find if I do this in the morning, I'm certainly ready to fry chicken by the evening. Once our chicken's had time to soak up that brine, so 6 to 8 hours, 10 hours, however long you have to let it brine, we're going to take it out, rinse it to get the big chunks of garlic and peppercorns and the big chunks of herbs off. And then pat it dry and put it on a rack or in a pan over towels and pat it dry and just let it come up to room temperature. I mean, that's a big factor in getting chicken which is nice and crispy on the outside and cooked all the way through, is not asking the hot oil to do all the extra work of heating the inside of that chicken from 37, 38 degrees up to 160, 170 degrees. Our chickens come up to room temperature, so it's time to go ahead and set up a dipping station to coat this chicken and form that crust. So the first thing we're going to do is season some flour. I've got here about 2 cups of flour. I'm doing 1 chicken. That would probably be a little bit extra. If you're doing 2 chickens, you would increase this to maybe 3 cups. To this, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of kosher salt, a little over a teaspoon of fresh ground black pepper, a tablespoon of paprika, and it's optional, but if you have any garlic powder or onion powder, you can add maybe a half teaspoon of each of those just to season the crust. Remember, the chicken's been brined, so the chicken's got a lot of flavor already, so you don't really need to go crazy with the seasonings and the breading. This is really just making sure the breading has some seasoning, not trying to season the chicken through a lot of flavor in the breading itself. So we're just going to mix that up, and we're going to double dip this chicken. So we want to split this into 2 different bowls for dipping. Maybe 1/3 and 2/3. So we'll split that up and have a little bit more in the second bowl, because after you've dipped that chicken in the buttermilk, you're going to have a lot more flour take up. And the reason for double dipping this is that the first coating of flour sticks to the slightly moist chicken and allows the buttermilk to really stick and cling well to the chicken once it's got that flour coating. So we're going to put about 1.5 cups, 2 cups of buttermilk in this bowl, and that's our setup for dipping the chicken. And then to dip it, just take a piece of chicken, roll it in the first bowl of flour. You'll see it's picking up a little bit of flour, not a ton. Shake it off a little bit, immerse it in the buttermilk, shake it off a little bit, and then the final coating in the big bowl of flour, and you'll see it really picks up a lot of that flour and the seasonings. And then this will go onto a rack here, and we actually just want to let this coating dry out just a little bit, maybe 5 or 10 minutes before frying. We want to coat this, set it on a rack, and let the coating dry just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and continue to do this with the rest of the chicken. So this is starting to look like fried chicken. I've got my coating on. It's drying out a little bit, so when it fries, it doesn't come off in the bubbling oil. And now I'm going to move over to the stove where I'm going to do the actual frying. All right, I've added the oil to the pan. It's about an inch, a little bit over an inch of oil, about 1/3 up the way up the pan. I've got a deep fry thermometer mounted. If you don't have one of these, especially when you're traveling, you don't have to have a deep fry thermometer. It sure does help though. If you don't have one, you need to do it really by sight and by sound, which means that you need to know what you're looking for. So I find it really helps to do this a few times with a deep fry thermometer or a candy thermometer and figure out what you're looking for, and then you can do it without one. Those little instant read thermometers are not going to get hot enough. What we're looking for here is a temperature of about 360, 375 degrees when we put the chicken in. That's going to come down rapidly, and then we're going to try and maintain about 340 degrees, 330 degrees during the cooking process. So it's right now zooming past 350 on its way to 360. It's time to start putting some chicken in. Do 2 batches. So I'm going to do all the dark meat first because the pieces are about the same size and take about the same length of time. And then and the wings, actually, the dark meat and the wings. And then I'll come back and do the chicken breast. So you see how that bubbles up? That's why you don't want a full pot of oil. Just like the people with turkey fryers that set their driveways on fire. You don't want to have this too full. You want the bubbles to subside a little bit before you add the next piece. We really don't want this to bubble over. So I'm going to let this go for about 6 minutes aside, and then I'll flip it over and do the other side for about 6 minutes, and I'll check back. Just while we're in process here, this is what it should look like as the chicken's cooking if you don't have a thermometer. You want those big bubbles coming off all around the chicken. That's the moisture or the juices of the chicken pushing out against the oil. As the juices steam and evaporate, they're pushing out against the oil, and that's what keeps fried chicken from getting really greasy. If those bubbles stop, it means that 1, you've overcooked the chicken, and 2, that's when the oil starts seeping in and you end up with really greasy fried food. So you want to make sure that the stream of bubbles continues all the way around the chicken pieces. When that starts to stop, it means that you're done and you need to pull the chicken out. So this has been in for about 6 minutes per side. And you can always check it with an instant read thermometer. You can't do that while it's in the pan, but you can lift it out and poke an instant read thermometer in. And I see that I've got perfectly good internal temp here, about 170, 180 degrees on the leg, which means that it is done. And that means everything's pretty much done at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this chicken out. If you notice real carefully, you'll see that we started off with 8 pieces and there's 7 there. I started without you, I already had one. And let me tell you, that brine really gave a great lemony rosemary flavor to the chicken, brought some salt through. One thing I would say is with the salt in the breading and the salt in the brine, you don't need to do a finishing salt on this. It's got enough salt already in the mix. And it's a really great way of preparing chicken. So this has been Peter for The Movable Chef. If you'd like the recipe for this and to see more great recipes and tips for cooking while traveling, please visit us at themovable chef.com.